Hey guys, Stefan with Stay Fun Farms, and as you can tell by my beautiful appearance here, we're on the road. And so we're out in Haiti in the hills up above Jacmel, and we're learning about this great little agroforestry project that we came upon in couchsurfing actually. And so we're up here with Sydney and E. And yeah, why don't you guys introduce yourselves and sort of tell us a little bit of a couple of the years that you've put into getting to where you are now.
Yeah, Sydney Etienne here. This is my wife E. Um, we've been here for the past 4 years since 2014. Kind of like stumbled onto this area. Original plans were to actually head to some family property, start from the center, and work our way out. But yeah, we fell in love with the community. As I mean, you guys have been here long enough to see how awesome the neighbors here
Yeah.
are. And also saw the need for like a little bit something different because like I came up here when I was like first maybe 13 years old, um, and there were citrus trees literally scattered everywhere. There was like a forest, coffee, cacao, everything just growing wild. Um, and since then, it's been a huge difference, like as far as the quantity and the production value of the area.
So people are going to tell from your accent right off the top that you've obviously spent a fair amount of time in the States.
Yes.
So I guess would you consider yourself more Haitian, more American,
Oh,
and how did
always
that
Haitian.
transition kind of?
Always Haitian. My mom came actually back to Haiti, 8 months pregnant. I was conceived in Syracuse, New York. She came back to Haiti, did the whole opposite immigration thing, so I could be born Haitian as opposed to being born American, which it took me a while to appreciate. Like honestly, like I didn't understand like what the purpose was, but um, there's certain value of knowing that you come from somewhere with like real history and a lot of layers to that history as well. Um, and growing with that background and getting to know myself like from here, like from my first 3 years of my childhood was on a farm. My mom came back home to have me, like took a break from college. She ran a small butchery for a
Yeah.
little bit.
Okay.
Um, we had gardens in the back, and from like the time I could walk, I'd go to the backyard with like a little stick in my hand, like digging up sweet potatoes, and like I don't know, like my whole time in the States, I never felt like I was really in the States. It was just it was what it was. I was just passing the time. There was a coup d'etat here, like it wasn't quote unquote safe.
Still a lot of
Um,
people telling us it's not.
yeah,
But
there's a lot of I don't know, a lot of different perspectives on that. Um, but my heart was always here. Like every chance I got, I came back home. I always missed it. I always knew that I would end up here regardless of what I did in the States.
so when did you make that decision to kind of say, okay, you know what, my journey through the States is done. I've kind of figured out what I needed to learn in the States. I'm taking back some of these skills, and I'm ready to be back in Haiti and go from there.
Yeah, I mean, it took a while to figure it out because majority of my time there, like most of my time was like freelancing, different kind of jobs. Um, you were always on a chase for like this what seemed
The
uh,
hamster wheel, right?
yeah, like very
Yeah.
very hard goal to reach. And what actually helped me with the decision to come back home is that I kind of reached the goal that a lot of people were chasing. I was able to start a fairly successful business. My bills were paid ahead of time. Like I paid off a lot of my old debt, and I realized that it really wasn't bringing much happiness other than like having that extra
Yeah.
stress, that imaginary stress off your back.
Sure.
Um,
And so, do you notice a lot of different, I guess, satisfaction levels with? I mean, you guys can't really see, but we're sitting right in front of the little tiny home they made here. And I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys did everything, just basically the two of you,
yeah,
your
from
own
scratch.
hands, all the
Yeah.
concrete, all the building, all the
Mhm.
designing. We got a great little one sheet of paper with a design sketch on it. Like, hey, this is what we built from.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, how'd that go? How long did that take you? And what sort of, do you know, it's a different type of satisfaction, different happiness coming out compared to what you were chasing in New York?
I mean, most definitely. I mean, 28 years in the States, I don't really have anything concrete that I can say that here, this is what I accomplished.
Right.
Everything is like titles or like, very, very superficial, nothing you can grasp. But like, I mean, 4 years of being here, like, I mean, this yard was completely empty. Everything here was grown from seed. We've introduced over 90 different types of fruit trees, like in the area. Um, like the house is built. Like I've learned so many different things.
Yeah.
Motorcycles, taking like road trips all over the place. Things I've always wanted to do. Like
Yeah.
learning how to play the guitar. Like all these things. Like the fact that I'm here and I'm able to actually show something concrete, even to myself. Like I know that I'm not like wasting any more of my life energy. Like my time is being very useful. Like like it's no longer a chase.
Yeah. Okay.
It's not about like the cocktails after work. It's not about like the expensive dinners that aren't fresh or organic or of quality to begin with, regardless of how much you're paying. Like that's another thing that influenced me to come back home.
Neat. Yeah.
The food.
Yeah, no freshness.
Yeah, okay, for sure. And so now I think that kind of catches us up to where we are now. So, I mean, one of the things that's really struck us is the relationship that you have with the community. Whenever we fried up a fun little, banana heart and banana flour meal today.
Yeah.
And Sydney's
First time.
bringing over all the neighbors and all the kids, like, oh, come try this, bring it back to your mom, see what she thinks. So, I guess how is that interaction going now, and do you find that people are really picking up a lot of what you're trying to spread?
Well, at first it was difficult because the thing here in Haiti, a lot of projects start and they don't last.
Right.
We've gotten used to people just coming and like touching and going pretty much. So the mentality is like, don't see mom.
Salut.
um, so the mentality has become like, because they're not here for our interests regardless.
Yeah.
So honestly, the first 2.5 to 3 years, it's like the neighborhood was fighting. I started off like just collecting water bags from the floor, like starting my nursery that way. And I was actually here recovering from an injury, and that's where like all this kind of grew from. Um, and I would like hand out trees and plants and even like squashes or whatever type of different plants were sprouting, moringa, whatever it may be, and give it out to whoever's passing by. And then I'd find the plants like just stuffed in a corner somewhere, just
Right.
like dying. And I'm like, so it took me a while to understand why that was the reaction I was getting. But after like the third year, more or less, um, they realized that I'm here to stay.
Okay.
They realize that I do have the whole community's best interests in mind because I am a part of this
Yeah.
community. Like if my neighbors can't eat, then I'm not going to be able to eat. Like if my fruits are flowering and they don't have anything, then am I gonna ever,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I'm not gonna see any fruits on my trees ever.
For sure. Oh yeah,
Um,
just for cross pollination and everything. I
yeah,
mean, the more
everything.
they grow, the better you're
Exactly.
probably
So
get.
like our goal was to actually get all of our neighbors hooked up with everything we brought in before we even planted our first tree. Like one of the kids, one of the smallest kids around here, he planted a jackfruit on his property that already started flowering last year.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, yeah,
That
he,
jump is
he,
like,
he
what, 2 years
planted
old?
way before than I
Wow.
did. Like
Yeah.
he got the
Mhm.
first batch, and we waited quite a while before we planted ours. Like,
Crazy.
and you see how tall ours has gotten,
Yeah.
and his is probably like massive. Like,
No kidding.
um,
And so you were saying you've planted what, 90 different types of fruit trees
90.
on this property alone, or?
Well, not well between the three
Yeah.
different properties.
So
like,
you're right. That's actually a thing to touch on. So you
Yeah.
now have 3 different plots that are maybe 5-minute walk away from each other each.
yeah, just about.
And then so it's kind of a fun little way of almost financing a project going forward without having to take a big mortgage.
Exactly. Because it's also like a lot of this is more for a living seed thing. Like
Yeah.
I see it as food first because we're gonna have to reap the benefits, even if we're just saying seed collecting
Yeah.
or seed harvesting. Like we have to eat through the fruit to get to the seed.
Absolutely. For sure.
So it still ends up being a food forest. For me, that's like a byproduct of what really my end goal is. But I do want to have like a living, sustainable source for a future source of seeds because if I plant 100 trees and I spread it out, and one out of that 100 survives, that's another source of seeds for another 100 that might one survive. And eventually those numbers add up. Like, I'm not trying to make a miracle overnight, and realistically, we know the success rate is fairly low.
Yeah, well,
Whether it be animals in the area, whether it be people, mostly people, um, or whether it be the weather. Like, there are casualties that do happen, but the success rate, like one tree, like one fruit, like you see a pomegranate, how many seeds do you get from that one pomegranate? And one tree provides hundreds of pomegranates per season, for example.
hmm
So if one seed out of that entire season survives, that's a whole nother hundreds of thousands of seed potential that can grow again.
so I mean, you obviously have a fairly large and grand vision going forward here, and a lot of high hopes for not only yourself and the plots that you have, but also for the neighbor kids, for the other neighbors. Uh, I guess one of the big things that we see people run into is when some of these plans don't move forward the way that you would expect, like when
Mhm.
you find the plans that you've given to your neighbors just sort of shoved in the
Yeah,
corner.
yeah.
How do you pick yourself back up from that disappointment when it's like, all I'm doing is trying to provide you guys, like, literally all you have to do is put this on the ground. I'm not asking for anything, and I'm trying to help you. How do you
Remember
kind
all
of
those
stay
days?
motivated and
Um,
get yourself back out of bed the next day? Be like, okay, let's just keep.
you don't let yourself
Yeah.
down to begin with for you to have to pick yourself back up.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, you do have to put yourself in their shoes to a certain extent. And like I said, with like the whole like NGO process, or like the whole transfer economy that's going on, where people are working in the states and just sending transfers down, thinking that there's a different kind of need.
Yeah.
Um, it's Can you repeat that question?
Just kind of how you get over the small disappointments, how you
All right.
keep
Well,
going day to
right,
day,
right,
and
right.
how, I mean, because when we see you, you have a huge smile on your face. It kind of
Yeah,
doesn't
no.
matter what sort of hiccups or speed bumps or on this road, millions of rocks and potholes and all sorts of other things get in your way. You just kind of have this, like, oh, keep trudging through, keep going through, and those things never really seem to get more than skin deep for you. So I guess the question would be, how do you pass that wisdom on to others if they find that those little hiccups that they are getting is just kind of affecting their motivation moving forward a little bit too much?
Well, it did end up being leading by example.
Okay.
Because at some point when I realized that a lot of my efforts were going away, it's like I showed you on one of the other properties, and I explained to you how many trees I've
Absolutely.
planted,
Yeah.
and how you saw how many are surviving, and the ones that are surviving, how they're really holding on
Yeah.
hard because of the lack of cooperation, mostly with the older people of the community who don't like change, of course.
Mm-hmm. Oh, change is difficult
Yeah.
for everybody, right?
So yeah, it did get to that point where you just had to lead by example. That's why we're trying to keep the fence like somewhat that you can see inside. We don't want to build walls. We don't want something that you can't see. Because one of our first experiences, like when the cashew apples first started flowering, we
Mm-hmm.
only had this property for 2 years. It was flowering on the first year.
Wow.
Um,
Really? Okay.
and I yelled out to one of the kids. I was like down the way. I'm like, "Yo, guess what?" And I yelled it out, and then all the adults heard
Right.
also, and they were
Yeah.
like, "What? Is that quick?"
No kidding.
They
Yeah.
had no idea, because a lot of the conception is that I'm gonna end up dead before these
Absolutely.
trees
Yeah.
end up fruiting. I'm not even gonna be able to taste the fruits of my labor, and that's like the continuous thinking that's been going on. And
Mm-hmm.
the fact that they're seeing that we're eating from it, the fact that they're eating from the trees that we planted and they watched me grow
Yeah.
like from scratch, um, has really changed the mentality. So like people are like, especially the younger generation around here, they're a little bit more open minded. The adults are still on their monocropping stages. Um, very few are composting, very few are doing things that are more sustainable.
Okay.
We're hoping to change that with the second generation moving
Mm-hmm.
forward.
Get to the kids. Yeah.
Exactly, because they are the future, literally. And giving them these sustainable practices, or giving them the option, because like there's a lot of things that I'm learning, and I share with them as I learn,
Yep.
and they found ways to actually adapt with locally, source
Yeah.
materials.
Yeah. For
The
sure.
same things I teach them. I'm like, dude, like this works even better than
Yeah.
what I thought. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so it's really interesting, like watching them learn and the eagerness to want more. Like they're always, like I was surprised they came back for that
Yeah.
little dish that we made earlier. Like,
Uh,
but they're very willing to move forward and like try something new. And their plan, like they're actually saving money right now to start buying their own property because their family does won't allow them to do the things that they really want to do
mhm.
necessarily. Like they're planting their garden on my property, like the radish patch
Right.
patch that we walked into the other day. Um, but moving forward, they do want to have their own. They want to be responsible for their own. Like they want to be a lot more independent from the struggles that their parents are faced with.
Yeah.
And this is definitely a way to go. Like,
Great. It's hope for
yeah,
the future, right? So
definitely.
I guess on that note, uh, what? How many years down the road are you looking? Like when you have this vision that you're, because obviously there are some things that you're planting here that are 5, 10 years before you're going to see much out of them.
Yeah.
Others, like the catch apple that you talked about, are within a year that you're seeing
I
something
mean,
come back.
that's surprising.
Yeah.
Yeah, like certain things are surprising. I mean, like I told you, like the baobab was supposed to take 4 months to germinate. Like within 3 days here, it was like, come on, let me
Yeah.
out.
Right.
Um,
So are you looking kind of like 20, 30 years down the road?
me, like for community wide,
Yeah.
20, 30 years down the road. Personally, from what I've seen in this garden, I'm saying another 2 to 3 years, like I'll be eating a majority of what I planted. Um, like hands down, I've seen somebody like a date this small
Yeah.
produce dates here in Haiti after
Yeah.
3 years.
No kidding, hey?
So it's like
Yeah.
there's possibilities. Like the standard for what people know is not necessarily the standard all around. Because like same thing with germination rates. Some seeds have their own personality. Some
Yeah.
of them
Yeah.
are slow. Some of them want to grow a little crooked, a little funky. Like like it's you gotta let them do
Yeah,
their
for
thing.
sure.
Like be patient. Like they'll come in due time. And a lot of the seeds that we thought that would have passed away like a year later, and it just happened to like whenever we tossed the soil back into the yard, it was just a matter of set and setting. Like they liked this certain area a
Yeah.
lot better.
Yeah.
Um, but we're learning a lot, and nature does provide, and nature is very resilient. Like especially here, like we have perfect weather year
Oh, so
round.
yeah. Yeah, you're definitely.
It's just a matter of
You don't
maybe
have our
adding some
Canadian winters, that's
compost.
for sure.
Watering during dry season, which we're able to do now with that with a rain catchment system.
Right.
Um, yeah, it's just doing that little extra effort, and things will flourish a lot faster.
Yeah. Nice. So another thing that you had mentioned earlier was that a lot of your neighbors think that you're just kind of some millionaire up in the hills having fun, and
Yeah.
without just money to spend, money to burn through, and don't really need much of say an output coming out from it. If other people from around the world are looking at doing something similar to what you're doing,
Mhm.
how much do you think is sort of like how much did you start on, or how much is sort of the base that they would have to save up before they can actually really jump right in?
Well, it really depends on the area,
Yeah.
the country, land ownership, whether it's tax or whatever it may
But
be.
for your example, like how much were you able
Um,
to jump in on?
what do you think, Dave? Like
Mm,
25,
yeah.
25,000,
25,000.
fairly.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's just been like in accumulation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's nothing that we necessarily planned. It's just like first 2 years, like I lived off the land. Like if all I had was radishes and pineapples, I ate radishes and pineapples. Like,
Nice.
and I was kind of like just done with the whole money system.
Yeah.
But to a certain extent, like it does, to me, it expedites things.
Sure. For sure. Yeah.
For me, I wish I didn't have to buy land to be able to do this.
Right.
But like for the trees to grow, I have to own the land. I have to be able to be there to protect it.
Yeah. No.
So that's where that comes into play. But otherwise, like very little can get you started. Like a small property like this can get like very little can get you started. The house, realistically, if we didn't want to do the tiles or like the thicker inside ceiling, we could have easily built the entire thing for under $2,500,
Cool.
like easily.
Yeah. Oh, it's a lovely little place
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
And a lot of the material is locally sourced. Like the door is local mahogany, the floor is loye. I don't know. I'm not sure what the English name for that, but it's
No, me
like
neither.
it's the same wood that they use those cheap pencils like that you had back in the day that would
Okay.
never sharpen
Yeah.
properly and had that weird smell.
Yeah, we're
Same.
supposed to be making floors out of them the whole time, as it turns out.
Well,
Yeah.
it's a nice wood. It's
Yeah.
decent wood.
Cool.
Nice wood upstairs.
All right, cool guys. Well, yeah, I think we'll probably leave it at that, unless there's anything else you really want to mention, anything that you think we've skipped over, or
Well, like you were saying, what it takes to start something like
Yeah.
this, it takes nothing more than motivation. Like, if
Yeah.
you want to do it, just jump into it. Pick a place in the world, wherever, even in your own backyard. Like,
excellent.
just start. Like, that's all it's all about. Like, once you start, everything will kind of align in its own path, like however it's meant to be.
Cool.
Yeah.
And so, if people want to follow along with you, where can they find you? We'll
Check us out on @GrownInHaiti on Instagram or growninhaiti.com.
and we'll provide the links to those below.
Yeah.
As well as the fun little banana dish that we made.
Yeah.
We'll have a video up for that. Yeah. All right, cool. Thanks a lot, guys.
All right, thanks. Bye.